We're all set? Okay. All right, it's 7 o'clock, so I'm going to call the regularly scheduled Select Board meeting of Tuesday, October 10th, 2017 to order. And the first item of business is approval of the agenda.
So move.
Okay,
Oops, I'll move to approve the agenda.
Okay,
I'll second that.
moved and seconded. I'll note that we have 2 reasons to have executive session at the end of the meeting. Is there any change or amendment that's requested? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of approving the agenda as drafted signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, that's right, and we have Nick joining us from, where are you now? Tennessee? Virginia, okay.
Oh, that's this
So Nick's joining us from Virginia. The next is approval of the minutes of the September 26, 2017 regular Select Board meeting.
I'll move to accept them.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Changes, amendments, any issues with the minutes?
They were outstanding. I mean, we had a lot of discussion that night, and everything was well captured. I was impressed.
All right.
I would like to second what Laura said. I was very impressed with Beth's capture of the minutes and want to thank her for doing a good job. Again.
So, an atta girl to Beth. All right.
I actually had one minor comment.
Nick! He had one minor comment.
But don't bring that up, I'm looking at the wrong minute, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, good one. All right, so all in favor of approving the minutes as drafted signify by saying aye.
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 And I will abstain because I only participated in a small portion of the meeting, Kathleen. Okay, citizen comments. Is there anyone here for anything that is not otherwise, yes, yeah. Are you together on the? Okay,
I'll be second.
okay.
I'll defer.
So Chris Zioli, the town tree warden, I'd like to bring the select board up to date on what's been going on at the airport, the tree removal for the, not working? Oh, there you go.
There.
Well, I can, yeah.
Now I could hear you.
You're coming through.
Closer.
Okay. Yeah, now where was, so bring up the select board up to date on the trees being removed, are removed for the airport safety. So that started on Friday. To give you just a little quick background, I got involved in January of this year because of the trees needing to come down, and according to the state, for airport safety, specifically the trees in the town right-of-way on Forest Ridge Drive. A hearing was held on February 13th in pursuant to Vermont State Statutes 2509, which requires the town to hold a hearing for any trees to be removed.
No, don't worry about that. This is a habit.
For any town trees to be removed in the town right-of-way that is not a hazard, not diseased, or dead. At the hearing, we talked about how the job should be done. I believed I was clear that the big equipment should not be used and that the understory should be undisturbed to replace the trees coming down. Some of this was written into the permit to work in the town right-of-way conditions, and they read as follows. Trees obstructing approach to airport are to be removed to ground level. Stumps shall be remain. Disturbance to surrounding area and soils shall be minimized. Limit damage to understory growth to minimum. And the last was notify Chris Zioli, the town tree warden, and Public Works Department 48 hours prior to start. The work started this Friday, October 6th. I was notified on Thursday, October 5th. I don't know when or if DPW was notified. I couldn't get over there at Forest Ridge Drive till Friday night, or Friday afternoon, 4:30. The job I saw done, no one was there at that time, was not at all the job I thought we had conveyed to McFarland Johnson. Two large pieces of equipment had been used on the bank. I don't know if you're familiar with the site. It's a steep bank, very sandy soil. The trees having to come down were very large pines and they were on the south side of that ridge. And at the very top of the ridge, the understory existed from the top of the ridge all the way down. Very nice canopy of growth coming in. So the two pieces of large equipment had been used on the bank, an excavator and a skidder. The trees had been dropped every which way, dragging the understory, damaging the understory, which we had hoped that would take over if left intact. Because of the large equipment used, there was now soil compaction and soil erosion problems. And the way the trunks were skidded down, not being limbed prior to skidding, did even more damage to the understory as they moved right along. They just took out small trees as they were dragged all the way down the bank. Seeing this on Friday night began a flurry of emails, which I really apologize to Kathleen for inundating her with, back and forth with Steve D'Elia, who is the senior engineer for McFarland Johnson, and he was the person I was given to contact in this whole site, or this whole job. So I started that Friday night, and it continued on. He and I met on Monday morning. And we went over the site, and I pointed out everything I had a problem with. He didn't as much as I did. He showed me a copy of the conditions to work in the right-of-way, in which case, I pointed out the soil disruption, the soil compaction didn't jibe with it. The understory was damaged under that condition, which it wasn't supposed to be. And then one thing I hadn't thought of, but there was all these stumps had been yanked out by the big equipment and just sitting there. And I hadn't seen this condition of work in the right-of-way before this. So at this point now, he and I could banter back and forth about the soil disruption and the understory damage. What was done, according to him, was necessary. According to me, it's not. But the stumps removed was obviously a clear violation of the condition. I mean, there was no reason for that, and yet, for some reason, these guys just yanked out. I counted 23 large stumps, everything of 6 inches in diameter and larger. I didn't even count the smaller stuff than that, and there was much of that. So he had to admit that this was in clear violation, which he then talked me into presenting my argument to the group that they meet every Tuesday or every other Tuesday at the airport to discuss the project, which I did this morning. In attendance was Brian Bennett, Michael Churchill, Matt Wheeler, who represented SD Ireland, Brian Pinasot, Vermont VTrans, and Steve D'Elia of McFarland Johnson. And at this meeting, we didn't play the blame game. We just decided, how do we fix this? And they talked to me. They talked and talked about bringing in soil and correcting the disruption of the soil. There's nothing we can do about the existing understory that's been damaged. other than they're not finished with the job, but to not do any more damage. One of those issues, I told them I didn't want to see that skidder up there again. They could use the excavator to pull that, the remaining logs out, but not the skidder. The skidder will do way more damage to the soil and everything than the excavator. The excavator floats much better on soils. So they supposedly were doing that today. I couldn't get back down there. I'd spent enough time on this. And Steve D'Elia is writing up an agreement that he hopes the town they'll sign, that they'll bring the site back to hopefully a decent condition. It won't be perfect, but hopefully they'll do their best. And I just got to hope from now that this is going to fix it and not cause too much erosion and damage. But that's where we are. And I just wanted to bring the select board up to speed on that. Probably way more of your time than was necessary.
I'd like to say
Yeah.
something. Thank you for your work on this. One thing I haven't heard you talk about was on a select board level, as we had wanted a dust barrier added of high shrubbery or something, and I haven't heard you talk about that yet.
There's nothing written in the contract, I believe, that states.
That's what the select board asked for as we closed out the hearing.
I don't have a copy of the contract. I just wrote down what kind of.
So, I mean, that was a very important thing to the residents in the area, and so if that's not part of what's going forward, that's going to be a real problem.
I will look and see if
Okay.
I see that on
Thank
there,
you.
and yeah,
Because
and then continue with that.
besides the erosion problem, that understory was supposed to be growing.
Yeah,
up and-
my whole philosophy on this was that instead of planting trees up there, that would have required more big equipment to get up in there to plant mature trees. The site would be better off growing its own. It had a nice canopy of understory growing already, and the job did not need to be done in the way it was done. It was done at the cheapest level, and I pointed out quite a few problems with the work there, and the quality of the work. And
So I have a question. So if you had been notified earlier, do you think that you would have been able to prevent this? You were seeming to
I don't-
insinuate that.
I mean, I would have had to literally stand in front of the equipment and say, no, you cannot use this. I don't know if I have that kind of guts.
Okay.
Because they were there, they got there. Do you know when they got the equipment there? Judy lives right next door.
Well, live on the road.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I generally walk through there at, like, maybe between 8 and 10 every morning with my dogs, and they were at work. It was probably around 9.
And they were already
before.
there with the
They were
equipment?
already, well, they were, yeah, I think they were already starting. And I spoke to the people who were there.
Will any contract come before us, before it gets signed?
Yes. My discussion with Steve D'Elia is he's going to write it up. He's going to send it to me, to Kathleen, to Benj Putnam. And
So it's a contract, it would come to the board.
Okay, because I remember we took testimony from Turks and, oh, no, I've forgotten his name. Another landowner right there who were very clear about what our plans were for having a dust barrier. Okay.
so, yeah, I took this way too personally, but yeah, I
Thank
was
you.
not happy. And, but we're on, we can't undo what's been done. Just now is trying to limit any more damage and fix what they have already done.
Okay.
But
Thank you,
Oh,
Chris.
Victor.
what about some restoration? I mean, it sounds like,
That's
One of the things so what we talked about today was them bringing in soil. The site is very steep, and what they did was basically build a road, not bringing in any material, but leveling the grade so that they could go back and forth fairly conveniently and without tilting on their equipment. They're going to bring this in the discussion. We talked about them bringing in enough soil to bring back
the contour of
exactly, yes, the contour of the slope, so that we're not creating a conduit for rain to collect and then run off in a big gusher. I specifically said I want to, try and bring it back to what it was, so that it's an even flow down the slope, and that there's no collection zone for rain to then build up and flow in a stream.
I guess as Susan is pointing out, whether there is, in the contract, some conditions that they not just leave it, and the way you've described it would hardly seem an acceptable way.
It wouldn't. Yeah, that would really.
Might I suggest, I think now we're aware of this, we have contracting requirements for remediation. I think now it's Kathleen will
Right.
oversee.
Right.
I think we need to get our staff out to make sure that we have a plan in place to ensure that when it's done, it's satisfactory to the town. Thank you very much for
Thanks,
doing the job.
I wish I
above
had
and
been there.
beyond, so, yeah,
Well,
I
you're
mean,
welcome, and thank you for your time.
yeah, thank you. Judy?
So Judy Weiger Grows, Middlebury. Sorry. I live on Forest Ridge Road. And the first thing I guess I want to say is maybe you guys could hire Chris like full-time instead of it being a volunteer position so that he could be on these sites. Okay. And I guess I too take it personally because I've lived on that road for 24 years at this point. And I think what's most, I won't repeat all that Chris said. However, what I found most upsetting was the first morning when I went down and, saw that work was starting, spoke to the guys. And I'm sure that they thought I was some nutcase from I don't know where. However, spoke to them and said, you do, understand that the understory is to be preserved and, as little soil compaction as possible. And, taking, I watched them, as Chris described, with the skidder, dragging trees that hadn't even been limbed down, knocking all this other stuff that was supposed to be preserved. And I thought, that's just a total disrespect for what's going on up there. And again, I think the thing that bothered me the most, I asked them also about, you know that the stumps are supposed to remain in order to keep the bank intact, and they said yes. And then to go and find out a day or two later, when we walked up there again, that they were all, pulled to the side, was all I could think of was, they lied to me. So here I am, inquiring, and I have these people lying. And that's totally unacceptable. It's totally unacceptable.
Well, we're well aware of the sensitivity of the site. It's too bad the contractor wasn't, and that, whoever whoever articulated the plan with the contractors should have been clearer on the sensitivity of the neighborhood to that site, because it was, you know, we were aware as a select board, so I'm sure that the state was aware of it. The contractor either blatantly disregarded it or did not get the message, and now we're at the point where we're in damage control, so.
And I understand that piece, but I also, I kind of recall that little saying that goes, you know, it's easier to apologize than to ask for, you know, permission.
Well, it's a lot more expensive, given what's gonna be required. I mean,
And I
if
hope
they had
so.
not stumped it, that's a big savings of money. So I don't see them as having done that, thinking they were gonna save money, so.
I don't know.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I think that somebody did a poor job articulating what the needs were for the site, and so.
I'd like to add,
Well, I was going to, the only thing I was going to say was these guys told me, this is the way we always do it. And I'm going,
That's why they're low bidder, and it's.
and so I guess I would ask that that be watched for.
So I have a question. If we had an agreement with them before and they had no regards for that, so what is the guarantee or what is the repercussion if they don't follow through again? What do we do? If they still disrespect
I think that we,
With the state, right?
contracts with the state, and I think we should have counsel and give us advice of this to make sure it's enforceable.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because if they're saying that this is how they do it always, so what's the guarantee that they don't stop?
Yeah. I think I'm just as mad, and I'm trying not to yell. So I think the best thing is what Kathleen and Brian are saying, is that you've told us thank you, and that we should probably, exactly the things that you're asking Farhad, Kathleen will ask, and let's find out and see where we go from there.
And I feel badly for the adjacent landowners. They were assured repeatedly by the contractor that they understood the conditions.
Right.
And going forward, the Turks and the Dietrichs called me last Friday. I spoke to Steve Delia about it and was assured that things were going to be done in compliance with the permit.
It's a mess.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay to say this isn't okay with us either, so.
Yeah, we're not happy about that, because we were going through a thoughtful process.
Right.
So to have it not end the way that we had anticipated is very disappointing.
one thing, if I may add, at today's meeting, I didn't want to get too caught up in telling them you can't go any further until we get an agreement, because I don't know if they could just say, fine, we're going to leave it as is and walk out of there. I don't know. So I didn't get as aggressive about conditions and written right away, written up right now on conditions. Because again, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I climb trees, so.
Well, now that it's been brought to our attention, we'll probably,
Yeah.
Kathleen can have Bill and Dan get up there and make sure that we're not creating a further disturbance, so.
Okay.
Okay.
At the meeting, the man who represented SD Ireland said blatantly, I never saw that conditions of work in the right of way, and which shows me that there's a major lack of communication going on with the whole operation. And if something as simple as that is being missed, what other are part of this project, something much more important is being missed and neglected. So the whole thing now really scares me.
And this is kind of little.
Yeah, compared to the big
Thank
picture.
you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Question for clarification, please. Was there a job supervisor on the site? Was it for-
Well, I don't know who's, Steve D'Elia, who represents McFarland Johnson, and I think they're the overseers of the whole project. So yes, he would be the supervisor.
So you would have reason to have seen the contract.
Pardon?
You would have had reason to see.
Oh, he did see the contract. It was this man who represents SD Ireland, and I think they were hired to do the logging, and yet it's not SD Ireland guys who are immediately doing the logging, was my understanding. It's.
Mhm. Yeah.
You're more to stay.
So we'll get back to you, Judy, and the other neighbors as we, we'll let you know what we find out and what the plan is. So I think we owe it to you to communicate that back to you. And, Chris says again, thank you for your effort and being able to catch it earlier than, if we'd waited till the project was done and the contractor was gone. So thanks for going out and checking on that.
Thank you, Chris.
For your time.
Next is the consideration of first-class liquor license and entertainment permit for the Rough Cut, which was 51 Main Street.
Right, so you have the application for the first-class license and an entertainment permit in your packet, and you should also have the inspection form from Tom Hanley and the fire chief sign. And we do have representatives here. If you want to come forward, there's Ben Wells, Sarah Guyard, and Sean Flynn. And any questions about the operation or what their plans are, they can answer them for you.
Any questions from the board?
No, we've been following the story.
Made us
I
come
know
all the
that
way
a
up
lot of.
Well, this is your chance
Yeah.
to give
You
a
can tell us
shout.
about your,
30-second shout out to those that are watching to tell them about your new business enterprise here.
We did have a marketing meeting this morning.
Yeah, we
with,
should
like,
know all
bullet
these things.
points,
Yeah.
so I didn't memorize that.
Stay on
but,
message.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we're very excited. We have a chef moved up from the south, and it's focusing on barbecue, southern comfort food, looking to be a place where all of Addison County and beyond are excited to come and be with friends and family and just have a good time.
And a mechanical bull.
Obviously, yeah.
Just wanted to say it.
You know, entertainment, you know?
Right.
I think that's a first for our area.
I think so,
think so.
yeah.
It's maybe the only one in Vermont. Is that the?
Possibly.
From
Yeah.
what
I don't know of another
understand,
one.
It's the only one.
I've been looking and looking, and I haven't found one. So
When I was young, there was one in downtown Burlington, but it's been a lot of years.
that's what we keep hearing that, and it's gone now. Yeah.
So we'll see you as the first one
Yeah.
on?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
boy. I don't know if my back will hold up.
when are you expecting to open?
4 weeks.
Yeah. Renovations effectively finished up today. We have some floors to sand.
Is it going to be loud music?
No music. No, much quieter than the old space.
That was one of the issues when 51 Main was there.
Yeah.
Because CCB is upstairs,
Right.
and we used to have music come right through the floors.
It's a tall space and echoey, so that I can see that being an issue. But we're not. We're focusing on the bar, the
Okay.
bowl, and the food, and less on the music. Yeah.
What's the entertainment permit covering then?
The bowl.
The ball.
The bowl?
Yeah.
okay.
Are you going to put the bull in the window?
You can see it through the window. It won't be
Okay.
right in the window. Yeah.
Too close.
Yeah, we've had a lot of people coming in, looking and seeing if it was in yet. It's not. We have to go pick it up still.
Okay,
Exciting.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Good luck.
So,
Thanks.
so they'll need a motion.
Please.
I'll make a motion to approve the application for 2017 first-class liquor license and entertainment permit for 2MJ LLC, doing business as the Rough Cut at 51 Main Street.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I,
Those opposed? Okay.
So do we have to do a second
please.
one, even though it said? I'll make a motion to approve an entertainment permit application for 2MJ LLC, doing business as the Rough Cut at 51 Main Street.
Second.
Moved and seconded. And this is for the bull.
Yeah.
So,
Last chance.
all right, when everybody's limping out of there, we'll know what they were doing. Okay, if there are no questions, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I,
Those opposed? All right, congratulations, and we look
Very
forward
much.
to eating
Riding
some
the
good
bull.
barbecue.
Good to see you. That's
Thank
great.
you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Chief?
Well, this is just a proposal to replace the current logging recorder system we have. We got into a contract with this company many years ago. They've been providing logging recording service for us. And the last few years hasn't been working out so well. It's turned very expensive. We pay 3 different fees to this company and their affiliates for software, for equipment, and for service. And it's become very expensive. It's $11,000 a year, a little over that, just to maintain logging. Now, for those who might not know what that is, every time you call the police, your phone call is recorded. All the radio calls are recorded, and these are used for testimonial evidence. They're also used in case we get a garbled call. You can do an instant playback and try to replay and enhance what was said on the phone. So it's been a system that we've been fairly happy with up until the last few years. Going back before this company, back to the 90s, we had purchased our own logging recorder, but the technology wasn't up to speed, and we thought at that point we'd just go to lease arrangements from that point on. That way we're not stuck with a piece of archaic equipment that we're costing a fortune to fix and repair. About 5 years ago, we started looking at what other companies were out there to be able to provide this service for us, and we settled on Acorn Recording Solutions. It's a one-stop company. There's one fee that you pay. This company does everything in-house for a reasonable fee. A 5-year lease is about $3,000 a year, which is fairly a significant drop from $11,000 a year. They're a company in New Hampshire. There aren't any local companies around here who provide this equipment. So after shopping around, we decided that when this lease was up, we were going to explore a lease agreement or a purchase agreement with Acorn Recording Solutions. When I deal with the company, I deal with the owner of the company. This is the sort of company it is. You get a lot of good service. We recommended this system to the Sheriff's Department. They installed it a year ago, and they're very happy with it. The system is going in the Williston Police Department and a number of police departments up in Chittenden County. They're all using the same system, which is good because all our software will be integrated. We can all share the same equipment if need be. So this was a 5-year proposal. It would take out the contract expires December 1st, so this equipment that's in there now would be removed halfway through the budget year, but the end of the contract year, and we would replace it with this equipment. So even in the first year, we'd see significant savings by going even with the lease. It's a $10,000 and change, I think, straight purchase, but we're not budgeted for that. So a $3,000 a year with about a $7,400 drop in our expenses for this seemed to make a lot of sense to me. And so that's the purchase order and the proposal here. These kind of programs are difficult to write specifications for because there's a lot of technology that goes into these with software that has to be written. There's a number of different proposals. We just went out and just found a company that we could be happy with, a proposal that was going to work for us specifically and get the best value for the money that we'd spend. And so that's why we're just doing a straight purchase order and seeking to just do a single vendor purchase on this.
Questions of Chief?
No, it seems well-researched, and you've argued well for it. I'm wondering what triggered the timing of it now.
Or nearing the end of the contract. Yeah, we
okay.
were in a long-term contract with the other company, and it was several years ago we decided that we didn't want to continue this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
However, we were stuck with a longer-term contract. This is 5 years. It's fairly brief, and I think it's going to be much better for us. We've had some software issues with the present company for the past year or two that have not been resolved, and we've not been happy with the service. The company's been sold a number of times as part of a bigger company. You know how that goes. We kind of lose that touch. Acorn Recording's been owned by the same family, actually, for many years, and they're not likely to sell out to anybody else, so I'm confident in them.
Okay.
If there's no questions, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move it, that we approve the purchase order under the sole source provisions of the town's purchasing policy in the amount of $15,361.05 to replace the police department's current radio and telephone logging recorder with a leased unit from Acorn Recording Solutions under the new 5-year lease term.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? Any questions? Nick, did you have any questions?
No, it makes sense, and she's done a good research job, so I'm direction.
Yeah, IT is one of the few things that you can seem to get more quality, better service, and lower prices the longer you wait, so.
We can't argue that.
That's great. Thanks, Chief, for bringing us something this good. All in favor, then, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, so we'll expect that mid-year?
December 1st.
Mid,
Yeah, about midway through our budget year, about 5 months in. And what we'll do is we'll end up, well, it's too late now, but we're trying to get all our contracts to be on the same fiscal year, so we don't have these things ending and beginning. So all our bids that go out and everything, this is the only one left that's still kind of a half-year project. So eventually we'll get this one back to the full 1 year cycle.
Okay.
sounds good.
Okay.
Glad to hear you're thinking in 5-year terms.
You said that and Kathleen's like, yay.
I'll be here at the end of the term. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chief. John, library trustees, it's, the board's gonna discuss, and it might as well bring you up now to be a part of any discussion. Absolutely, I'm sorry.
We have the whole board.
Uh-huh.
We have Faith, Chris, and Chris has.
Oh, there's strength in
We
numbers.
add a few chairs.
Yes, sure.
And there's some seats over here too, if you want to sit.
Yeah.
So, this is a continuation of the agenda item that was brought to us at the last board meeting, requesting the select board resolve to in support of the library's proposal, the trustees' proposal for the project of, tell me what you're looking for here. They're really looking for us to say that we're in full support of the project, but not committing money is kind of what it comes
That's
down
right.
to. And so,
I think it's would be extremely difficult for the library to move forward with this project if the select board was silent about its feelings on the project. We have contracted with a consultant to do a financial feasibility study. I would anticipate that people who the consultant speaks with will ask what the select board's position is, since the select board actually is responsible for the library. It's a department, as you know, of the town. It's not privately owned by the library trustees. That is very important to us, that when we do a feasibility study, we're able to look people in the eye and say, we have the support of the elected leaders of the town. And it's also important for us to know whether we should go ahead with this project, because if we do, it is likely that we will be looking for a new director of the library with skills to do a significant public education program about why this project is needed, and then to help with the feasibility study, and then to help raise the money. Because, as I've learned recently, especially when you're asking people for very large gifts, and that will be the ultimate test of whether this project goes forward or not, is how many very big gifts we can get. They want to be asked by the person who runs the organization, not a trustee. A trustee can accompany them, but they want to hear from the director. Just as if you were being asked to make $1 million contribution to your alma mater, you would probably expect to be spoken to by the president and not someone else. So those are the principal reasons why we're here. And we would very much like to feel that we, being the trustees, and you, being the select board, do this together. That, you know, it's a mutual interest to all of us that we decide what we're gonna do on this project.
So, for select board discussion, are there any thoughts? Has anybody had any more thoughts on this? I know, Victor, you've shared some thoughts with me on maybe a potential path. Anyone else have thoughts? Or I don't think that the whole board has seen, if you haven't already, it's in your packet, Victor's thoughts.
Well, maybe it makes sense for Victor to articulate them.
I think maybe if you would like to maybe go through your thoughts here, and maybe you have had changes even a third or fourth time since then, so I know this is
No, I haven't.
No,
I'd just like to say something that needs to be said. I'm sure when you get your new director, it will be said. I mean, I look on I consider the library essential institution of the town. A town, at least like Middlebury, who thinks that it does more than just people safe and provide police protection. We have a gym, and that's for physical recreation, and it seems to me that the library is a parallel institution, sort of a healthy mind and healthy body kind of thing, that it provides education, information beyond the school level, although the schools rely on it. I'm certain of that, including the Community College of Vermont. So for me, a complete town needs a good gym, a good physical recreation center, and also I see the library as its counterpart and a very important one. So I'm very much in support of it. My sense is that where we are now, I see the Select Board as simply expressing its support of this project, its approval, in the sense that we think you've done a really terrific job in terms of your conceptual plan. And in that sense, I would say I see myself, if the board would agree, of supporting you and commending you for what you've done and asking you, please go forward. And as you say, we're not in a position to make any commitments beyond that. I don't think that it would be, it's not the point. We have a conceptual plan. We are concerned about, I think, the cost of it. And I think I would speak for all my Select Board members, my colleagues on the Select Board, that a large, I would say a significantly large portion of this would have to come from funds other than public taxes. I mean, that the town cannot simply have a $10 million bond issue and then turn that on. So that we're concerned, and therefore we think the feasibility study needs to be pursued. And we urge you, of course, to get a new director in place. And as you've given the reasons why that's important, that would be just as an expression of support. I guess my sense is that making a formal motion is really not doing much more than that. I mean, unless there's members on the board who would disagree with what I've said.
I mean, I agree with you, Victor. I look at it as we're on a timeline of, we worked with the town library committee, worked together, you completed your work to get the proposal to then do the feasibility study. We committed to the town library committee, we committed to the feasibility study funds. I think the problem that we ran into is the director left, and so the pause button is pressed. And I think we're all supportive of hiring a new director, and when that is done, to unpause and go forward with the feasibility study. So for me, I feel really confident about that we're all in that together and what we've committed to so far. So, and that's,
Yeah.
runs pretty parallel to what you
No,
were
no,
saying.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what else we can say. We're in for what we've already, so let's go. But if you need something different, maybe that hiring of the new director means, it most likely means something different to all of you than it does to us. Because you're gonna be involved much more directly with that, along with Kathleen, than this board is. And that maybe I'm just missing something of what else you need.
John, what discussion did the trustees have that put in question why you would not pursue hiring Kevin's replacement, someone capable of carrying the project forward? Because you put it like, if you're not in support of it, that we would just find somebody to replace him. And if you are in support of it, we're going to look for somebody with other skills. I would give you the rhetorical question that if you can find someone with those other skills, why wouldn't you take them anyways? And if you could find somebody with those other skills, would it maybe help us move the project forward in the town's view? And so it's a little bit of the chicken and the egg. I think we've continued to support the project. I'm not sure where I fall on the line of I'm very cautious on the tax dollars. That said, I have thoughts going of how do we fund this as part of some other project. We've talked about wanting to solve the parking issue. We've talked about EDI projects. If something was to come to evolve that allowed that to all fall into place together and provide help, offset the funding, is that something that helps? But it's not going to do it all the way, and so we have to keep working incrementally towards this to the accomplishment of doing this. And so I don't see that. I think that the key linchpin is getting the right guy there full-time who can be that staff bearer that's going to keep people excited about it. The trustees can only do so much. You got to have that. Kevin was a great guy for our community, and we all appreciated him. And he educated us on the needs of the library, along with the trustees. But he was the front and center guy. And if you don't get somebody who can backfill that void, I think that the project starts to lag just from not getting the right person. So I see that as more critical step than our vote of support, because we've already given that by saying we've already approved funding for, we've already said that we think that the project looks good, and we've approved funding for a feasibility study. Is that not support?
Well, I guess if we're going to recruit a director who has the skills that I just mentioned, that person is extremely likely to want to know that the project is really going to happen, or is very likely to happen. Obviously, there's no guarantee because we don't know whether we can get the money. But if I were younger, and I would be very interested in this job myself, but I wouldn't be interested in the job if I hadn't gotten a clear sign that it was likely to happen, so that I would be able to have the challenge that my skills really work for. I think there are people around, there are not many. Most people who are librarians are not skilled at public relations, at public education, at raising money. And there are other things that have to be done as well. So I think it's important that there be a signal. And, I would recommend to you, because I think it's what you've already said, that you just say, and take a vote on, the Select Board supports the Ilsley trustees' building proposal and encourages them to proceed. I think that's all you need to say. I don't think you have to get into further details. I'm very glad to make clear right here, and I'm sure Catherine and others on the board would agree with me, that we do not assume that there is any statement about your recommending funding for this project. That obviously is a matter, first of all, for another select board in a couple or 3 years, and we're not asking for it. We just want to know that because this is your department, you think we should go forward with this. And I think that has to be something more than just a variety of things that are on tape.
But
Could I just,
go ahead.
I think,
I'm sorry.
I mean,
I'm so sorry.
I guess that whether a formal motion would in fact make the project go forward is moot, because of the fact, I think that what you want is an expression of sentiment by the Select Board that it supports the library's plan to renovate and restore and to enlarge the library facilities, that it plays an essential role in the town. Okay. Now, as far as the project going forward, I think it does depend on getting a director who is capable of leading the project forward, and also getting the money. I mean, that, and I suppose that if after the feasibility study it turns out that, well, we really can't expect to raise that much from private sources, then it may be, there would be a need to return to the conceptual plan and say, how can we make it smaller, more cost efficient? But I think just an expression of support from the, what would be a formal motion would be simply saying that we express support.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I guess that's fine. But to say, do we? But if you simply poll the members of the board, that would be the same thing. In other words, there's
Well, I
nothing
don't know what
magic
the
in
reluctance is on your part between a resolution saying,
All right.
saying that we support it and
Well, a
hope you go
resolution
forward
is-
with it, and somehow saying it only orally. I don't know what your reluctance is about that, but if you could make that
Could we
clear,
have a
perhaps
formal
we could
expression of sentiment?
address that.
How would that be?
Formal expression of sentiment.
The only thing from what you said, though, that bothers me is that you, for hiring someone, you want them to have a guarantee that this project is going to go forward.
Susan, I did not use that word, and I don't expect, I know I would never tell anyone who we're hiring that there's any guarantee. All I
Okay.
would say is, we have the support of the Select Board, the trustees unanimously support this, and we're hiring you, and the first thing we're going to ask you to do is to start a public relations or public education campaign. And the second thing we're going to ask you to do, because we need to educate the public a little bit better before we start doing a feasibility study and inquiring how much people might be willing to contribute. The second thing that we will expect you to do is, and we will do it, is a financial feasibility study. And if that looks sufficiently promising, then the third thing we'll ask you to do is to take a leadership role in raising money for this project. And the trustees will be right there beside you helping. And we will keep you all totally informed. I don't see any reason, we're working, we want to work with you.
Yeah, that's
We're not interested in going out on a limb by ourselves. All we want to do is have a formal feeling from you. You believe in this, because, you can understand from my point of view, with the things that you're saying, that it doesn't suggest to me, even though the words are we support it, it suggests some kind of unknown
Hesitancy.
reluctance or hesitance.
I'll speak to that, too. We all know that big projects done in towns aren't necessarily totally supported by the select board, and the select board has their several members who don't want the new school or do want the, et cetera. And the fact that you're all interested in this library and that you commissioned John to be the building committee and work for 3.5 years, this should be pretty easy. And whether it's a motion or you just say, we are all in total support. You all hire a good director, that's our job, and we will talk positively about it and we'll be excited for you. Does that feel okay?
Yeah, I think any reluctance, at least from my part, is just a concern about the funding, and we're not there yet. And
Absolutely.
I have been very supportive of the project personally since the beginning, but I do still have some reluctance about the money, so.
And that's absolutely appropriate, Heather.
Yeah.
I think that's
Totally.
true of all of you, okay?
And
And
I-
it's certainly, I mean, I'm willing to add something to this if you want, that says, we understand that this is in no way a hint, a suggestion, an implication that the select board will support a bond.
So.
You are the ones who have to decide that.
Sorry.
This is not asking for any hint of financial support. This is simply saying, we believe that this is a worthy project, and we support the ideas that you've sent us and that the architects have developed, and we want you to proceed. That's all.
I think what Brian said in the beginning is so true, that we should have full support to this project without any financial obligation. That's simple, right? Without any financial obligation, we have the full support.
That's fine.
My thoughts are that we have supported the project. I think that's what Brian was suggesting too, so we didn't feel like, our hesitancy is not that we don't support it, but the request to say it again, I guess, because we feel like we've said it. But I think that you're preparing us for some other steps, and I think that that's prudent, and that is the hiring of a director that may require potentially maybe a higher salary. So there may be a budget impact on that.
There may be, I hope not.
And that you're also preparing us to be a partner in the fundraising.
I'm not prepared, I mean, I'm not asking.
In terms of just, like you said, the calls that we might get from primary donors or visits.
That you might?
Not calls that we would get, but that you would want us to support you, I guess.
We wouldn't want you to expect to do any fundraising. We will have to get into a bond at some point, we hope, because we'll go that far forward. But we are not asking you to be fundraisers. That's our job, too.
Oh,
We're simply asking, I think, when I think about it, and knowing, I'm relatively new to this project. This is only my second year on the board. And so therefore, I haven't been involved in the 3.5 years that John and his really remarkable committee and the architects have been. And I came on board and thought, wow, look what you've done. This is really exciting. And for a town to come on board, having gone through a fundraising and building project at a church, nobody is always on board, or let's say everybody is never all on board. But if the whole select board is really, you're not going to go out and say, I said this last time, you're not going to go out and say, well, it's a good idea, but I don't know if they can do it. That would not help us. That's not support. But as you talk, people are going to ask you, what do you think about this expensive library? Well, what we see is a beautiful building can make downtown even better, accessible, and very exciting for the next 50 years. That's the kind of support. You're not fundraising, but you're talking it up. And that would mean a lot to us.
I mean, I feel like I've said that already for the different stages of support that we've given and the funding for the feasibility study, but the feasibility study will mean a lot to me. I mean, I'm worried about that, how I have no experience with raising large sums of money, so other than by bonding, so that is a concern to me, and I'm hoping going through that will then shift everything for me, but I am worried about that kind of stuff.
So
And so
we don't know what it's going to reveal. We're hopeful. I mean, I think there are people in this town who can contribute a very significant portion of this project as a challenge to the rest of us to come up with the balance. But the support that you've given us, and I think you've always given, I mean, when we've asked you for something, you know, when Dean and I came up with the idea for this committee, the select board went away. You know, 3 of you have been participants on this committee, Susan, Victor, and Nick, and you've been very involved. And you have authorized some of the cost of the feasibility study, and the trustees are coming up with the balance. But what is a little different is, those were all things that were done before I presented to you the report that was asked for when you established the library building committee. The report was given to you in August.
But the you were waiting for the first time you talked to us about it, you were waiting for the final copy, and that's when we approved the feasibility funds after that, or it hadn't come in yet, but you've come to us 3 times.
Yes, but the feasibility study was approved, or the money was, and part of it, I think, had been previously, wasn't it a change, Kathleen, from some use that you had already been allocated to the library, and we asked you to repurpose that money? I think it had been for capital.
John, we did have most all of the information, though, when we approved the feasibility study, but we wanted to approve that before Kevin left. But you came back to us to close out and do a final due-out report. But we already had the price tag and the design and everything. When we approved the feasibility study, we had maybe bootleg copies, but we did have copies of that on digits, and so we had seen that, and it wasn't a blind approval of, you know, we already knew the rough price tag, and it had our chance to gulp. So
Well, I understand you'd known the price tag. I just mean that you had not received the report from the architect, which was something that was required of the library building committee, which I assume you've all now read.
Right. But we wanted to show our support for the project.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I'm not, I don't really know why we're quarreling about this. I mean,
I think there's some confusion, that's all.
So, I support the library building project. I don't know if I need to make a motion, but I support the library building project. Does anybody not support?
I support wholeheartedly.
And I want you to hire a new director, and I want the feasibility study to come next, and we're with you through all those.
And I would like you to encourage the new hire. So rather than saying it's likely to happen, I would like you to say, we want to hire you to make it happen.
absolutely.
Very good.
Absolutely.
You know, like,
That's a great
I
idea.
want to hire you to make this happen.
Very good.
So this isn't
And that's our job.
isn't come here and we're gonna make this happen for you. You come here and you make this happen for us.
Thank you.
This happen, yeah.
That's great. I agree with you. That's exactly what we would do.
Let's do it.
Well, I'd like to,
Yeah.
one second, Nick, I do have someone who's had their hand up for a while.
I want to ask for Nick's comments on this, please.
Yeah, I was gonna go there. Okay. Nick? Go ahead, Nick.
My turn?
Yes.
Okay. You know, I think if you look at it, I mean, there's been a lot of effort put forward today, and it's been good effort. And if I understand correctly, really what's being asked for and what we're kind of all grappling with is really it's just something that says we support the continued effort to improve the Ilsley Library facility and its function. We're not, obviously there's the devil's in the details of the cost, but at least it's not to stop the effort, but to continue it as to hopefully give some more assistance on their fundraising effort. So that essentially is what I'm hearing being asked for. Now, the one comment I was thinking about is that the issue of hiring a library director with emphasis on fundraising, and I think we got to keep in mind that one of the reasons Ilsley is so loved is because it's really well run, and it's a small town library. So first and foremost, the library director that we hire has to be a librarian who continues the good mission of Ilsley. if this individual is not an expert in fundraising, well, so are they. There are experts who can handle that, but don't lose sight of the fact that first and foremost, we want the right librarian. And I know that's on your minds, but I just had to say that. Over.
I was considering that too, because I do know that maybe we could complement that person. It would be great to have one person that could do both, and it sounds like they could be out there, but there are not too many, to your point. And that, to Heather's point, we want to hire somebody that could make it happen, but they're also a good librarian, and that we're hopeful that the feasibility study will show that we have capacity, not concerned. We are hopeful, like that it will show that, because people do love public libraries, and we clearly do.
I'm a little hesitant about the Select Board giving directions to the library board as to the qualifications the person has. I think Heather really has summarized it, that a major part, in fact, the major part of the new librarian is to make this happen. That is to say, we know that there's work that needs to be done, quite apart if we did nothing. I mean, just leave the building as it is. But the point is that I think your list of issues last time and the reports that have come out and the conceptual plan, which I think does an excellent job of incorporating the fulfilling of those needs, are all clear. Now, as your responsibility is to make sure that you get the person that can do all that. Whether the person has a degree in library science or not, may not be an essential part, as long as the person understands what libraries are for and how they function. I mean, so I would be hesitant for us to do anything but say what Heather has said. The primary task of the person you hire is going to be to carry this project forward. And we like what you've done so far, and we hope, that there will be the means to do it. But I think that's, and I'm all in favor of it. I mean, I'm excited about what I've seen so far.
Hey, John, could you read that statement that you had again, please?
I'll give it to you.
This is a very general statement of support. The Select Board supports the Ilsley trustees' building or renovation proposal and encourages them to proceed.
I'm going to go up there and help them.
Fine.
You've got something written in it.
Second.
Or Farhad.
Moved and seconded. And let the record show that there's no commitment on funding, but that we support the work that the trustees in the building committee, library building committee have done. And we feel that they've come up with, that they've done a nice analysis of the needs for the community and come up with a potential solution. And we support their continuing progress and moving forward with a building, right?
The feasibility study?
The facility study. So
Feasibility.
that being their statement is the Select Board supports the Ilsley trustees' building or renovation proposal and encourages them to proceed.
Fine.
So, okay. All right. So any comments on that then? Questions, Nick?
No, it sounds fine, Brian.
Okay. So all in favor of this statement of support, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Good, unanimous support.
Thank you all very much. We will now go right to work.
Go forward and do good things.
Thank you very much for your support
Yeah.
and encouragement.
All of you.
Okay, next, I think, Heather, are you gonna lead us through this next one? So the next we want to talk about are Middlebury's Economic Health Initiative and what our next steps are. Remember, we advertised in August for persons interested in serving on the new Economic Health Committee that would be charged with reviewing applications for a town revolving loan fund and advising the Select Board on local economic development issues. As of now, as of yet, we have had no one step forward to express interest in serving on such a committee. And we've had potentially some other ideas on ways to go. I know, Nick, maybe this would be an opportunity for you to share your idea with the Select Board.
Okay, now, does it come through clear? Can you hear me well?
Anybody
Yes.
here, Nick?
It's hard.
Okay, great. Okay, well, one of the recommendations from that Economic Health Task Group was to establish an economic development committee that could monitor economic conditions and analyze local strategies. And then, as you said, Brian, Kathleen put out an invitation to see who might be interested in participating in this, and there was no one expressed an interest. And I think some of it's mere speculation that that was partially because of a lack of definition about what the committee would do and the level of commitment that would be expected in this effort. We look back at the efforts we've had over the last 6 months of trying to move forward with this. I think the one thing we have seen is a general agreement that Middlebury should act to control its economic development fate. The outstanding question is, how do we do that? After not receiving any responses, I was thinking about this, and I started just asking questions to various people around town, businesses of all sorts of owners, and of all sorts of businesses, and several people throughout the town. I started discussing this idea of economic development, and how could we implement this committee, or whatever we call it. And in these discussions, it's actually been very interesting. You get people one-on-one, they really come up with some very, and there's a lot of really smart people in this town, they come up with some very interesting thoughts. What I've been hearing in summary is, well, there's a general recognition that economic development is not accomplished by a single person or an entity, and I think we've seen that recent efforts. It requires cooperative expertise and efforts from individuals with an array of knowledge and capabilities, which lends itself to this concept of whatever we call this, an economic development council or some other term that we would choose. And what it seems I'm hearing is that there should be a group of connected individuals that can meet on a periodic basis to review the current economic conditions, to monitor emerging trends, and to provide assistance to the business community. And this group can then also gather on an as-needed basis to review and strategize if a specific opportunity should emerge. Now, just to clarify the term connected, to me, as it was described, it means an individual with expertise in a specific discipline who has access to a larger network of related disciplines. And so an example of that could be one of the council members could be someone who has expertise in real estate, but their larger network of people that they could connect to if economic development relied on a real estate aspect would be others with expertise in properties, including developers, planners, and the property owners. Other areas that were mentioned as areas of expertise could include manufacturing, existing manufacturing, finance, utilities, professional services, transportation, hospitality and tourism, education, and then a government arm, and there are others that we can expand on. The conversations seem to lead to two general options to establish and manage this council. And I'll refrain from trying to indicate what I heard from many as what would be a greater endorsement in order to avoid a bias. But option one is a town government established and managed council, that would be established by this board and presumably managed by the town administrator. Option two would be a private established and managed effort. And that would be largely driven by our business community. We've had examples of this in the past, and they started to just diminish over time as players changed, moved on, retired, and just didn't continue. So there have been some active groups in the past, and to really re-energize something like that with past and new blood. It could work with existing organizations such as ACEDC, who's in the process of bringing on a new director, and they would be able to periodically update us as to how things are going. If it's a town effort, there are a number of details that would need to be addressed. One of the big ones is how to handle proprietary information. One of the items that we had heard during our evaluation of our previous effort was that there was a reluctance among many businesses to say to a town official what some of their business plans for fear of premature release. So that would be a big issue. If it's a private-run council, the key question seems to be what is the role of the town government. Now, there will be roles. So if, just for example, a business wanted to expand, well, obviously planning and zoning, the development review board, they become involved. There could be a public information aspect to it, as well as public works and safety, and of course town management. So that's kind of been a summary of what I've been hearing in my discussions since this recommendation first came out. So I wanted to at least summarize that and now put it out for discussion among all of us as to thoughts on how we move this thing forward. Over.
So I'm wondering, like the cast of experts that you just described, is there already a roundtable or a group that's convened, so that we would tap into an already existing network like you described, or that does not exist, Nick?
Yes, I think it does.
I'm sorry, was Heather speaking?
Yeah, she said yes. What do you think it is?
I think it's the board of directors of the Addison County Economic Development Corporation.
She thinks it's the board of directors of the Addison County Economic Development Directors. So could we use that existing network? They're already meeting?
Well, at this point, that's an option that could be one of the many options to explore, especially as there's some new blood on board with the director, and that's one option.
Mm-hmm.
Can I comment?
Please.
So, I'm sorry, Nick, I have to disagree with you.
Well, I would expect that, Heather.
Yeah. So I feel a lot of some of this private, entity work that Nick is suggesting is similar conversation that we had when the Economic Health Task Force was meeting, and part of what Nick was recommending to us then, that we didn't find a lot of support for in our group. Not that that makes it right, wrong, or any better, but there wasn't a lot of support for it. There were some concerns about how that works and how the town stays involved when you have a private group. So I'm reluctant to go that direction, given the time and effort we spent to come up with, with a recommendation. Personally, I asked Kathleen a couple of weeks ago what had become, if anybody had shown any interest. And the one thing that I thought was a high priority for the task force was the revolving loan fund, and getting a procedure, application, process for that particular part of it going. And wondered if at this point it made sense to ask a smaller group of the initial task force if they would be willing to come back and work specifically on this problem, or this task, and see if we couldn't get this piece of it done, and if that wouldn't help clarify better, at least take that part of the committee's work out of it, and if re-advertising it without that piece in it would make a difference in who might be interested in doing it. I do agree with what Nick said about it being maybe a little open-ended, and the commitment-wise, time-wise, from my own perspective, reluctant to, participate in something when I don't know those pieces of it. So I am probably the farthest from an economic development expert, but I am trying to stick with what the committee, how the committee thought we should go forward,
So to clarify, you're recommending that there be a convening of some of the members of the task force, the Economic Health Task Force, to look at the criteria and the procedure for a revolving loan fund, and nail that down, if they're willing.
If they're willing, yes. Would be my suggestion. I think my suggestion would be to ask them first and see if there were any interested. If there were not, I think sometimes asking particular people to be involved in something is more successful than at least to try to get it off the ground and get something started.
Right, we did have the beginning of it, didn't we? Like a criteria for a revolving loan, yeah. So it would just be reviewing some of that work and refining it?
Finalizing it.
Okay.
I think the second piece of this is also talking about Aqua Vitae's tax stabilization application.
Right.
That needs to be addressed as well. And so maybe it would be asking this group to do two different things. Because I think Nick is right in the sense that we need to be specific about what we're doing, and to have a sort of short-term task force is a much better way to frame it. But I agree with Heather that I want to try and make what that group worked on work. And we also have Aqua Vitae. I don't want to leave them off in the ether while we figure all this other stuff out. I think it's unfortunate that we couldn't get people to apply, but I think if we have something short-term, that people will plug into that and be engaged. Okay.
Well, both things have relevance to Aqua Vitae because we
Correct.
have an application still that we have not acted upon on the revolving loan fund.
Right.
So it could be a test case that they work through as they're looking at the policy.
Yep. I think it's an opportunity we should try and see if some members of the group will form a task force and help us out.
So also in that regard, having been aware of my select board meeting notes on this, Hudson Tilford called today and said that he would be willing to volunteer for the tax stabilization review group. And also I spoke to Robin Scheid today, and she said that she would be willing to serve on that group and also work with a group on the RLF.
Great.
I think that's a good beginning. I mean, I'm hesitant about starting another vague committee or group that, and I think we have a specific task, and this would be a test case as to, well, it would also, I think, help to educate us on what really need to put in place. I'd like, Heather, you said the Addison County Economic Development, that's not a private organization, is it? I mean, it's
Well, I guess it's not, no, you're probably right, it's not private, but it's not a town committee, I guess is the
Right.
way.
Separate from us.
Separate from the.
But we have someone who serves on it.
Kathleen. I mean, certainly you have expertise and experience, and it would be good to get that group's advice before. I just don't want to be sort of reinventing the wheel.
Reinventing the wheel, yeah.
To Nick's suggestion, you know, if there's interest in the business community for a private group to counsel the town on economic development issues,
Go for it.
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to them forming their own group and advising us on an annual or semi-annual basis. I mean,
We may or may not take their advice.
Right.
And that's okay.
Well, we do have the Chamber of Commerce and
Right.
the Better Middlebury Partnership, which have
We engage with them on a
done
regular basis.
some of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
so we could encourage them to create their own private group. If there's interest in that.
So maybe for tonight's business, we can move forward with organization of a task force to at least address two issues, the revolving loan fund and the tax stabilization policy. And we'll keep chipping away at this, at our economic health committee desires incrementally at least, by at least getting a couple of the things done that we were looking to seek that committee's work on. So with that said, can we come up with a number? Kathleen had recommended 3 to 5. I would prefer 5 personally, but
Maybe, she had also said that we could just sort of base that depending on who applies and gets excited about it, that's a good goal, but to not limit it until our October 24th meeting.
right.
But I also want to check in with the timeline is really good, but the timeline was for just the tax stabilization and not necessarily the revolving loan fund, and I don't want to make it sound like we're going to compress everything into that timeline.
Right.
Okay.
Robin thought it would be a longer effort to get the revolving loan fund up and running.
Okay.
To develop all of the documents, the policies, application materials, review materials.
So maybe the first focus is the tax stabilization, and the revolving loan fund could work more in the background and not be held to the timeline? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
And maybe even members get added at that point, but it could start with a core of 3 to 5 people that are focused on the tax stabilization, and then bring on others as we get into the revolving loan fund more deeply.
Yeah.
And you've got 2 volunteers already, and we haven't really gone out to our initial committee yet with solicitation.
Can I recommend my wife
Yeah.
Okay.
for this?
Yeah,
So-
so recommend to me.
Well, I was thinking, I think Betty Nuovo would be someone who's familiar with the tax laws and all of that.
So, are you okay with that? Do you think that's a good first step?
All right.
What are you asking her?
What are you asking me to do?
No, I'm not
That's it.
setting you up to lead that. We'll decide that on the 24th.
Okay.
We're-
So, would you like me to reach out to the task force and ask who's interested? Or
That's
should
where I
that-
was headed as my next thing. If
Okay.
you think that's a good idea, can you send an email to all those, because
Should
you have
that-
the
can
email
that- Yes, I do.
contact.
So, can that come from me, or should it come from Kathleen? Is it okay to come from me? Because I can do that.
I'm happy to go either way.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean,
Your judgment is good.
Okay. I can send an email out asking, and so we're specifically just asking for this piece and potential work on the revolving loan fund to follow.
right.
And that we're anticipating it would be a short-term commitment at this point. With
Right,
potential to grow depending on how things progress.
right.
Okay.
Hopefully following the timeline that you outlined, Kathleen.
Yeah,
So by November 14th, we would,
okay.
For the tax stabilization.
for the tax stabilization piece, we would have something in place.
Okay.
So,
Is that clear to you guys what's happening?
let me repeat back to you what I think was said. So the board tonight is going to make a decision that on October 24th, they will appoint a task force. 2 people have already volunteered, and Heather Seeley is going to send an email out to the then existing task force to ask if 1 to 2 others want to join, because you're looking for 3 to 5 people to be on the board that you'll appoint on the 24th.
Yeah.
Their first task will be the tax stabilization policy according to Kathleen's schedule. Their second task will be the revolving loan fund, which Robin Shai is already familiar with.
Right.
Good summary. Yes. Okay.
That said, can we get a,
I'll move that we form a task force to evaluate Aqua Vitae's application for tax stabilization, with the appointments to be made at our next meeting on October 24th. And to work toward policy and procedure on our revolving loan fund.
Good.
I'll second.
Yep.
Thanks, Farhan.
Please go ahead.
I need one. Just give me one.
any comments, questions? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of formation of the task force, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay.
Just one other quick comment to Nick's point. You know, I don't think we're necessarily done with the conversation of how we go forward on what the committee recommended.
Oh, no, I'll bring you back there, but we've we've already blown our schedule, so I'll bring you back there once we get our first 2 items of business done. So,
Sounds good.
okay.
Okay.
Jim?
Sorry to keep you waiting so long.
That's okay. Good window into all the.
It's like old times, Jim, old times, like May.
And here I am back, so, good to see you all. Hey, Nick.
Yeah, how you doing, Jim?
Good. So here we are, 2 months out, right? And it seems like it was a long time ago that we had all that disruption downtown, but it was just 2 months ago. So it's a good time to come before you and just give you a brief update on what we're doing now to kind of wrap up this summer's construction project and look ahead to 2018, the construction program there. So, community survey. So about 3 weeks ago, I sent out a 12-question survey to the community, basically asking how did we do. And so, good response. 250 folks from the community have responded to the survey, and so we've now closed the survey. 50% of those who responded were downtown daily, or reported that they were downtown daily. So the data that we've collected here are from folks who had firsthand knowledge of what was happening in town from June 1st right into middle of August when we completed the project. So I will be sharing the data results publicly next week. The way I will do it will be to, over the course of 5 days, discuss 2 or 3 questions a day and kind of in a daily update. At the same time, then I will prepare an executive summary for the select board, along with a link to the survey. The overall viewing of the results is a quick look. It's a very visual kind of data survey, but there are up to 100 individual responses to some of the questions from members of the community. And I think you'll find that particularly interesting. And specifically, the question was posed to the community. So you've had a month now to live with the temporary bridges. What do you think of them? And that brought a wide range of responses, as you can imagine. Some people love Merchants Row one way. Can we keep it that way? Other people, God, I really miss being able to turn down off of Court Square and come down Merchants Row. So there's a wide variety of opinion there. I would say, in general, and I'll underscore that, in general, the response to the temporary bridges is, gosh, they're better than we thought they were going to be. And things are okay. here. And but I'll be summarizing all that and providing detail on that. I was really pleased to get 250 responses. I think that you, like me, will be pleased to read the responses and to see how our town and our community and how our neighbors and friends reacted to this project that was so long in the making. So that'll be next week. Any questions about the survey?
Well, you said that it'd go out in a series of messages. Did you mean on our town listserv, or you're just talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll do the daily update that I was doing during the construction
Okay.
period,
Mhm.
and it'll just be, I think it'll maybe garner more interest in as if I kind of parcel it out over the course of 5 days next week here. Build to the dramatic climax. But I want to be real transparent about the data, too. This will be kind of my interpretation of what's there, but at the end of it, it's public information. I think it would be good for everyone to see, how do people respond. That's a lot of responses. So that's the survey, and I was really pleased to get data. I heard a lot of people came up to me and gave me their opinion during the course of the project. It's nice to be able to look at the data and say that of those 50%, here's an example, of those who are in downtown every day during the project, 85% of them were very satisfied with the way the project was managed. That's hard data. That's not 10 people coming up to me and telling me what they think. So that's what I wanted to break down and be able to share with the community. That's a survey. We've had several people, including members of the Select Board, have suggested it would be a great idea to have the story of the temporary bridges posted downtown. So we all know what they are because we lived this deal. But parents, for example, coming to drop their kids off at Middlebury College in September arrived and did this, as they saw these new bridges downtown. So we have visitors. We even have locals who are not sure, well, what is the story with these? Are they going to be up there forever? Is it a year? What's the deal? So I think in our ongoing quest to get accurate, reliable information out into the public, it would be a good idea to create these kind of storyboards downtown. V-Trans is on board with that. They are already doing the design work, and so the plan is, I've written copy that has, here's the story of the overall project and the reason why we're doing it, here are the benefits for the town, here's the timeline, kind of the overall story. Right next to it will be a very visual representation of the town for 2018. And it'll have, Water Street, here's where the access road is going to be built. Lazarus Foundation, here is where the drainage system is going to be built. Riverfront Park, there's going to be an access road there too. Triangle Park is going to be closed. So I'm giving examples of some of the impacts in 2018 so folks can get a realistic, accurate, reliable view of not only what's happening, but how am I likely to be impacted. I see Printer's Alley is going to be open to pedestrians all year. That's great. Still closed to vehicles. Okay, duly noted. Triangle Park is going to be closed off. Okay, got it. Some of those parking spaces are going to go away. Okay, well, I've got a plan to be able to park somewhere else. It's just, I think what we did a really good job on before was letting people know what was happening before it happened. So that'll be, the storyboards will be part of that deal.
I was just going to say that the other thing I was struck by in the original documents was the history of rail, and I don't know if that's something to incorporate in the storyboards too, like some of those early photographs, before, after kind of photographs.
I'm glad you mentioned, I reached out to the Sheldon Museum. I said, do you guys have, I'm not sure when photography was invented, but do you guys have any images of the Village Green before 1849 when the railroad came through here? Because that would be cool to show.
I saw some of those pictures in early documentation, the historical preservation part of.
Yeah, I asked Bill Brooks and his team to look into that for me because I think it would be great to show. And this is one of the end results, right? The restoration of the Village Green, 100 and whatever many years it is later.
Okay. Anyway, that would be great.
Good. So that's kind of looking back over where we are. Okay, so now we're moving forward to, in 2018, I've already kind of given you a sense of, or a reminder of what's coming then. But I'm attending meetings every week up in Montpelier, and in between, planning sessions too, to make sure that I fully understand and can communicate to you and to the community, here's what's happening in 2018 and here's the impact. I'm advocating on our behalf for certain things up there. One of the main things I'm advocating for is you got to keep Pruner's Alley open to pedestrians 365. There may be some times here and there where they got to shut it down for moving equipment back and forth. But that's the kind of value of having a Middlebury person at the table, because I heard loud and clear during the summer how important that was to the Marble Works businesses and to the Main Street business to have that open pathway back and forth there. So things are moving forward there. Right-of-way discussions will begin in earnest in November. The town has a finance and maintenance agreement with the state that was signed last year that essentially conveys to the state rights to work, for example, in the Lazarus Foundation area. So AOT will come to town and sit down with Kathleen and go over the various parcels that are involved there, and we'll communicate that out to you as well. They'll also be negotiating with landowners at the end of Water Street for that access road, with the National Bank of Middlebury and others that are involved here too. So I will be sharing with the community the full plan for 2018, and I'll have, if you'd like, AOT can come down here too and kind of walk you through the plan as we get closer to the start of the year. The last thing I wanted to mention is granite curbing. That was a request from the Select Board to, if any sidewalk reconstruction that would take place downtown by AOT as part of within the project limits, that there would be granite curbing on that sidewalk. And Wayne thought about that and said, sure, that's fine, we can do that. But he said, yeah, you want to be careful about that, because our experience, AOT's experience, has been the granite curbing doesn't always do the job maintenance-wise. Yeah, it may react a little better to plowing than concrete, but it has its own maintenance issues that have to do with its separation as it's put in from the concrete behind it. And so they've just cautioned and asked us to think about and explore, whether that's what we really wanted, to give them an answer in December. So I've reached out to Steve McKenzie, who is the town manager in Berry City. They went through that big 4-year project and revitalized Main Street, and they put granite curbing in there. And I've asked him for his to give us a report, since that was put in 3-4 years ago. And I'll try to canvass some other town managers too, or others, and come back to the infrastructure committee with a kind of a report out on what I've learned to help you guys make a decision on you want granite curbing or concrete, or how's that going to work.
Yeah, we're not unfamiliar with it here in Middlebury, though. We've used it before in the high use areas and the high visibility areas. It not only looks better, but it does wear better. So
it is wearing better.
I guess I can understand Wayne's concern, but it's a decision that we have made over the years to use granite curbing in the areas when we could afford it, where it's going to, it's a significant price tag difference, but putting them back, re-shimming them or something, is probably a lot cheaper than trying to report.
Well, I think there was a slightly different take on it in infrastructure committee, so.
So what's,
Go ahead.
yeah, do you want?
No, go for it.
So the thing that stuck out for me was when Luther Tenney from the college said that the college is taking out all of its granite curbing and replacing it with concrete because they have so many maintenance issues with the granite curb. And so I was on the same page you were until he made that comment, and this is the college right here in town, and they're doing away with it. So, and I've, been watching the North Pleasant Street project where they did that formed curbing. It's the rolled. The roll, it's actually a cast in place, I think, type deal. But anyway, I think it looks pretty good.
I think what we asked was sort of a breakdown between, there seems to be either you're paying more for the granite curbing and then you probably have more of a shift back with the sidewalks, so you're having to replace the sidewalks more often and having to replace this granite curbing less often. Or if you have the regular curbing, then you're replacing the curbing more often and the sidewalks less often.
Yeah.
So it was.
A trade-off.
So for me, I wanted to know what the different cost differences were, because if you're just dealing with having to replace something, then the aesthetics sort of wins out for me.
Yeah.
But, so that's what.
So I think
That's where we were.
bottom line is, we're gonna turn this over to the infrastructure committee.
We're
And if you
already
get
working on
anything,
it.
no, send it to the
Send to them.
infrastructure committee.
I will do
We'll let
that.
them bring
Yeah.
us a
Thank you.
recommendation.
Yeah. And I'll get some more info on this, but Tim Paquette, who is our resident engineer, I think many of you have met him, said, that we got a new way of forming that up, the granite curbs to the concrete, that's better than how it was done before.
So that's
So
good,
that may
that's
play a big
great to
role in
know.
it.
So I'll find that out and
Would
give
be
it to you. And
great.
when I hear from Steve and Barry, see if there's anything
Yeah.
worthwhile there, I'll shoot it your way. So, yeah, so that's
One should know the
that's
ways
kind
to
of the
do
update from the railroad bridge front. Any questions?
I saw in the thing, the proposed parking plan, and there was, for Main Street, and the only thing I was concerned about, in the one time there was a bus parked in.
So wait a second, that's
Oh, is
a
that?
later issue
Oh, I'm
that
so
Kathleen's
sorry.
gonna talk about.
Never mind
Yeah.
then.
Yeah, I haven't been.
I thought that was you, it's not you.
No.
I will be quiet.
No, I have a concern on it too, when we get it to Kathleen.
Yeah.
Never mind.
I'm happy to help out there, but, so, yes.
Sorry. Is it my turn?
Yeah.
Were you gonna say something else? Or did I-
No, I'm done, so.
I just wanted to, personally have not had a chance to walk Merchants Row yet since the bridge went in, but the other day I was driving north up the hill by the post office, and I happened to look at Merchants Row, and there was people walking on the wrong side, and I wondered, because I haven't walked it, I didn't know, but there was a car heading up, and there were people walking in the travel
On the
lane
road,
and
yeah.
people walking in the sidewalk, and it was really obvious they shouldn't have been there. And are there signs there or something telling people, and they're just not following
Yeah,
them?
here's where there aren't signs. You come off of the Village Green, and you're walking up, and there's nothing that says, hey, cross the road and get to behind the Jersey barriers and walk up there. So some people, as you notice, walk on the other side of the yellow line. Wayne tells me that's not illegal. It may not be smart, but it's not illegal. Now, if you were looking up, you would see that there is a sidewalk crossing that's very safe on the other side of the Jersey barriers. So could we put up something that says crosswalk and a little arrow pointing that way? Yeah, we could do something like that, sure.
So we don't have something, but if it's not illegal,
I have seen people doing it. I haven't seen them doing it a lot,
okay.
so I thought, oh.
I don't travel through there a whole lot. I just happened to notice it the other day, and I just wondered
Yeah.
if anything, if we're doing something or ignoring it, then there's nothing we can do, but
Yeah, I would say, let's
there's
just,
a few moments that I witnessed, it just didn't look like a good idea.
I think the bigger issue on Merchants Row, which I'm kind of giving some thought to now, is out-of-staters make the right-hand turn onto Merchants Row and go, oh, there must be a road that goes down to the river. And then end up in the Battelle parking lot and go, I guess this is not it. So, we have a big white, so at my request, DOT put a big white arrow in the middle of Merchants Row that says, yeah, it's this way. But, when you're driving, you're not looking at that stuff, right? So, I'm thinking I asked Alice Cannell at Battelle Block to see, let's think about private parking, do not enter, or something like that, that's on the flip side of the stop sign that you come out of when you come out of Battelle. I'm just thinking about what would make sense there. So anyhow, the point is that it's kind of an ongoing, we gotta live with this for 3.5 years, or 3 years. So there's a lot of room for fine tuning here, and all ears for ideas on how to do that.
I like how Merchants Row has calmed down, and that it is more pedestrian friendly, and you can see the possibility for plaza activity for the future, and it's exciting to be able to visualize that to a certain extent now.
Yeah, I think that's true on Main Street too, the traffic has calmed a bit there.
I mean, just following up on Laura's point, I mean, it might be nice to begin to see in the story you tell on, I think there are a lot of possibilities with Merchants Row, and Laura and I were just looking at the fact that you have the narrow roadway and a much wider place for pedestrians. When that's open, I think there are great possibilities for the town. I would hope that those possibilities would be perceived while AOT is paying for the project. In other words, that they would be built into the project, just as granite curbing is. I mean, in other words, they're taking this whole thing up now, and they're going to put it back in some way. And I think when it's put back, there could be some really exciting differences, maybe, or just seizing opportunities that we haven't had because we've not.
I agree, and the clock is ticking on that, because they're gonna be, this next year is early work package 2, so it's another early release package. Then the big project is 19,
Right.
20, and 21, which they will be finalizing in contract sometime in the spring. So that's how much time we have to live with this and go, yeah, it would be better if X, Y, or Z happened. But you know that these guys are ready to hear our ideas and try to work them in if they can.
Okay.
So, at the risk of truncating a discussion that we love and we want to keep working on.
Yep.
I am going to do that. And
Let's move on. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
your time. I appreciate it. Good to see you all.
Thank you, John, or John. Jim.
Kathleen, are you going to present this, or is?
Sure, pretty straightforward. Another 3-month extension of the sewer usage agreement with Agrimart, extending all of the terms and conditions. Discussed with Agrimart that this was the last one that we wanted, extension that the board wanted to do, and the expectation is that we would have a agreement in place by January 1.
Perfect.
So I'll make a motion to authorize Town Manager Kathleen Ramsey to sign the 8th Amendment to the Agrimark Sewer Usage Agreement, extending the current agreement to January 1, 2018.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded.
Quick
Shoot.
promise. So there was a discussion about funds as part of that, like that rates will go to,
Oh, yeah.
okay. Thank you.
That's been kind of the basis of,
The whole time,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. I didn't.
That was reiterated.
Okay.
I'll be glad when it's done.
I'm sure that staff will be too.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
oppo- Those opposed? Sorry, Nick, didn't mean to cut you off, buddy.
Okay, well, it's all right.
Okay, let's see, next is, next steps for engaging the college in potential community broadband partnership. And we talked about it at our July 14th town college lunch, and the need for it, and what would be the strategy for expanding community broadband access. And there is, in our notes, there was an excerpt, and since that time, we haven't done anything. So, at Susan's request,
Prodding.
was to get it into the agenda and actually move the project forward. And so, thoughts?
I think it's one of those things where we left it that our people would contact their people and we'd get our people together. So I think it's a matter from the board, is it okay if we pick a couple people to go to the college and talk with their new
Executive Vice President for
Exact-
Finance and Administration.
Thank you. And so he was one of the ones who would be in the conversation, but they weren't sure who else they would bring. So I think to have, 2 or 3 people to go and sort of see where the college wants to start having the conversation, let's just go get started. But that would be, is the board okay with that?
That's a good idea.
Yep. I'm not sure if
Yep.
you had something else in mind.
No?
So,
So is there?
Have they received the study?
this study was, yes, they have a copy of the Tilson study. I told Dave that it's pretty dated and it's based on the school system being the way it was beforehand. So I
right.
don't think this study will work as it's presented,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a good place to start the conversation. And
Okay,
so, yeah, they do have a copy of it.
all right.
Would you like to lead that discussion?
I would love to lead that discussion.
And do you
Yeah.
I love the enthusiasm.
Yeah, I would also like to bring Brian Alexander, who has come several times to talk to us. I'm not sure if you remember him.
Yes.
Long hair, beard, very knowledgeable and engaging, and he would be a great person to bring along with. I'm not sure if a third person would probably be very appropriate. So, but we could start with 2 and see if we need to add more. I'm not sure who the college has in mind to bring to the table.
Would it be appropriate to bring staff? Like maybe would that be something that
Yeah.
Kathleen, that Chris English would be a good guy on?
Yeah, that would.
We put you on everything else. So.
Yeah. So it's almost like it's a broadband task force that we're creating,
Pretty
that
much.
would be you, Brian Alexander, and Chris English. That would be good.
Yeah.
And whoever the college designates.
And go from there. And I think just to sort of start that conversation, Lori Patton was very engaged with the conversation, and for the college themselves, they have great access. But as soon as any of their staff or faculty or students go off campus, they can fall either gradually or immediately into a dead zone. And so, how do we leverage that sort of support from them, but also potentially piggybacking off of what they have for our town? So it's a pretty exciting but open-ended conversation.
So could we maybe then ask Kathleen if you could reach out to Dave Donahue and suggest that we'd like to have this group meet with the college's point people to discuss the needs and what opportunities might be out there and ideas.
Yay.
And so,
Good.
is that good?
Yay.
Okay. All
Thank
right.
you.
So I'm going to move on to check warrants then.
I did the review today, everything seems to be good. So I would like to make a motion to approve total expenditures in the amount of $280,539.91, out of which $186,389.64 goes to accounts payable, and $94,150.27 goes for payroll for the period of 9/23/2017.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All in favor of approval of the check warrants, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay. Move to Kathleen's report.
In response to, in response to a question raised under board member concerns on September 26th, I reached out to District Ranger Chris Matrick to request an update on the Park Services staffing plan for Middlebury following the closing of the Middlebury District Office on September 29th. Chris reports that the Park Service will have a staff member stationed at the Addison County Chamber office at 93 Court Street, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. through October, and then on Thursday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. in November and December. Staffing will likely only be 1 day per week during the winter months and then return to part-time staffing in April next year. Okay. And then in your packet, you had some 50% design plans for the Academy Street hub. And you mentioned earlier that you may have some concerns about the Main Street parking proposal as part of that plan. So I have that up in the screen, and I'm happy to relay the concerns you may have to the working group.
Yeah, the bus and the handicap parking next to the
Library,
the
the
upper one
post
there,
office, that one.
I'm
yeah.
concerned that there's enough space for the handicap, like wheelchairs, to offload without crashing into people. And especially if the bus, depending on which way the bus is parked, either one way or the other, might be also offloading a wheelchair with people and things. So that's all.
Kathleen, when I looked at it, having a bus parked on the crosswalk was a concern to me. And
Oh, yeah, gosh, I didn't even
and
see that.
the other thought I had was, it's not clear to me, is this like a city stop where it's a stop and go, unload
stop and go.
quickly? And so that might be workable if traffic stops and it's done quickly, but if they're parked there, I think it's a safety issue, and it gets us back to where we were when they were on Merchants Row. And so I was a little concerned. I'm not a traffic guru, so, but that did beg the question, why is it on a crosswalk?
Yeah, I didn't even see that. Wow.
Where else would they go? Is that, so they must be limited in terms of where they, so they can't really pull into a parking spot, so their idea is to just drop off, right? So where else would they go?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just a question. So if it's a drop and go, then, and people are stopped, I mean, you could also stop the crosswalk. People would wait while the bus unloads, loads, and moves. But I'm just remembering when I was on Merchants Row and they were there for a prolonged period of time, so I don't know how long they're at each of their stops.
Well, this is not a hub, so probably very
It's not a
different.
hub, yeah, I expect
Yeah.
it to be different, I just don't have enough knowledge. All I have is a plan, and I see a stop on the middle of a crosswalk.
So I'll relay those two concerns about offloading of handicapped patrons and handicap parking, as well as parking on the crosswalk.
And I wondered about people waiting to get on the bus in those locations, and it confusing the people waiting for the bus and people wanting to cross, and whether it desensitizes drivers to seeing people. Like if people are waiting there,
Yep.
you see people waiting, you stop so they can cross, right? But if people are waiting for the bus, do people then start to assume that everybody they see there is waiting for the bus and we don't stop for pedestrians anymore?
Well,
You know what I'm, like?
I know, but where else are they gonna do
I
this?
don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Can we do it somewhere where there's not a crosswalk?
Where? That you wouldn't be taking parking.
You know where I wondered? For the one that's on the crosswalk, if they turned up Merchants Row, we've got that load unload spot. I don't know how often that's being utilized. And is that, I mean, it's on the wrong side for load unload. It was just a thought when I looked at it. I'm not a part of this committee, so I'm not privy to the briefing and the work that's gone in the back. So all I got was a diagram. It's a little difficult to be fully objective about it, not knowing what considerations.
I know that the working group did have concerns about both of those locations for the reasons you've mentioned, and they will be meeting with the engineers soon to work through those. And I'll pass on your thought about Merchants Row.
And I know maybe it's close to where we're moving them, but there's also that little bit of a pull-off right by Cannon Park, right? Isn't there a little bump out there? And I know it's fairly close to where the hub is, but it does make a downtown stop where,
I think they're already planning that too, from what I saw
okay,
if you, I'm not in this group, but I did see the notes regarding the public hearing that Actor is having. This Friday, actually, is the one for Middlebury. And so they're talking about changes in schedule, and related to that are planned stops at the library and Main Street, because it will impact schedule. So that's where I saw it.
okay.
So I think, they are,
Look, I wanna accommodate Actor as much as we possibly can, but I just don't know that
well, they know that that's the most popular drop-off, the post office, so I don't see
So
that
when
they
I
had a
was-
lot of options.
So when I was riding the bus from the parking lots to downtown during the bridge construction, the post office let them pull down the drive to the post office, and they turned around out back and came out and let us out right there.
There was a problem with that, though. That was good, okay temporarily, but I remember
Okay.
Bill Cunningham say that that was not going to work for a longer term.
Okay.
And I don't remember exactly what the reason was, but there was
I know there
an
was
issue
no-
that the post
I
office
know it
had.
takes time and they're.
No, it wasn't
backing-
about their schedule, it was from the post office.
Oh, okay.
But yes, that did seem to be a workable solution, because it got the bus off the street completely. That still doesn't help you solve the.
Can they
well,
pull in and temporarily block that drive? Can we do the,
And you're backing out into traffic.
don't, no more than that does? Not pull in, pull parallel.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, anyway, I'm trying to find a solution.
I know. You're trying to fix it.
I was trying
And
to
I
fix it.
admire that.
Fix it.
Okay.
Okay, so this is 50% plan. It sounds like there's others with similar concerns, and I'm sure when we get the full plans, we'll get the
Yep.
thoughts behind it, too. Anything else, Kathleen?
That's it.
Okay. Board member concerns. Going to start with you, Victor.
Nothing.
I just want to say quickly that I've said it already, but I want to say it again, that I thought the gardens and the planters that were outside here and the recreation center and the median gardens and stuff, I just thought they were really nicely well done and just look really good this year, and I just wanted to say that again. So thank you. I'm done.
Susan.
I talked with Kathleen earlier and asked her what happened with the Vermont League of Cities and Towns and the legislative policy. And our proposal was accepted and incorporated into the legislative policy, which is pretty exciting. So I don't know, I'm proud of it. So I just wanted to report that.
I wanted to mention that there's been a lively discussion about speeding in our neighborhoods. And so there have been a couple of suggestions from neighbors and residents about what could calm traffic. So the Public Health and Safety Committee will probably look at that at their next meeting, which is coming up on October 16th at 4 o'clock at the police department. So, of course, it's an open meeting, so anybody's welcome to that. And you saw in your packet the compilation of comments that I put together, so you get a sense of what people were saying, and my response also. And I think it's been very positive, actually, that people have been talking about it and trying to remind each other to slow down for a safer town. So some of the things that they were hoping for are speed radar signs and also speed tables, which are different than humps. They're rubber mats that just create a little bit of a bump, and they're less of an issue for snow plowing, but still something that you have to negotiate. But they're mobile, so you can experiment with them and move them around. And I haven't had any experience with that or haven't heard anything about that in the work that I've done in the Walk Bike Council or elsewhere. I'd have to investigate that some more, but anyway, we've done a lot of vetting of different measures that we could take to calm traffic from the pop-up demo projects that we've done, and I also mentioned road diets, and And now we have these other suggestions too, so I suppose stay posted, but, yeah, let's try to remember to make eye contact with each other and slow down. And the other thing I've heard is that it would be great if we could do more work with the college, because we still see that we have a lot of cyclists and other users from the college that are not understanding our rules of the road. And so we're going to try to get to them again. So I just wanted to mention that, and I was glad to see in the notes the updates on infrastructure projects, particularly Halpin Road, because I know that there was some wonder about when these projects were going to close. So is it open yet?
It is not open yet. Paving tomorrow, hopefully.
Okay. I thought I understood like the road was going to be open and then the paving was going to happen next week, so.
That was last week.
That was last week. Okay. So the paving's going to happen probably tomorrow, and then it'll be open. And then what about the other North and South Pleasant Street paving?
That paving should take place tomorrow as well.
Tomorrow, too. Woo-hoo! Okay, big day.
So to follow up on that, lots of people have been wondering, and Susan suggested that on my highlights and other official communications, in addition to having upcoming meetings on the side, perhaps add something about projects, what the status is, when they'll be finished, and things like that.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting idea, or the link, to the website. And I know that we've tried to put something on the website too, which is good. So finally, I just wanted to remind you that we're continuing discussion from the Climate Economy Initiative. So there is a meeting this week on Thursday that's just a smaller task force looking at efficiency and renewable energy for homes and businesses. So I've been invited to participate in that. But the real big one, as a follow-up to the September 18th meeting, is happening on October 26th at the American Legion. So you should probably start to see, well, you probably did, I think it was in our packet, information about that. So I hope you'll be able to come, because that is an opportunity for us to really prioritize our projects. So that's a really important one. That's at 7 o'clock on the 26th.
Okay. Farhad.
I'm good.
Nick.
No, nothing, Brian.
Okay. So Laura, very good things, and I enjoyed reading your analysis of the speeding, by the way. Next time you get 2 subjects, okay? I'll start limiting you. And Kathleen, we're all very impressed, I think it would be safe to say, that what we asked you to do, you got done. It's not easy going into the VLCT where there's all these towns being represented to carry the motion. And I think it's a sign of the way you're respected by your peers there, and thank you for getting that done for us.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
with that, Susan.
In accordance with Vermont's open meeting law requirements, I move that the board find that premature general knowledge of the consideration of a personnel matter would clearly place the Select Board at a substantial disadvantage because the Select Board risks disclosing its litigation strategy if it discusses the personnel matter in public.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I further move that the board enter into executive session to discuss a personnel matter under the provisions of Title I, Section 313A1 of the Vermont statutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Here we go again. In accordance with Vermont's open meeting law requirements, I move that the board find that premature general knowledge of the consideration of a legal matter would clearly place the Select Board at a substantial disadvantage because the Select Board risks disclosing its litigation strategy if it discusses the legal matter in public.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I further move that the board enter into executive session to discuss a legal matter under the provisions of Title I, Section 313A1 of the Vermont statutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
We're in.
No?